The following transmission is between myself and a Fallout modder known as PortoWulf, who has been modding since Fallout 3 and has been a large part in helping to build large upcoming mods such as Fallout London, Fallout Cascadia, and Fallout Miami. In the background, however, he has been hard at work on his own large-scale mod project, Empire Wasteland, which seeks to recreate and introduce a new story in his very own backyard in the Big Apple of New York City. Over the course of our conversation, we talk about the aesthetic style of the Fallout universe, what we can expect in the Empire Wastes, and the potential for a paid mod marketplace sometime in the near future. As always, if you enjoyed this episode of the Atomcast, the best way you can show your support is by subscribing to our Patreon, as your monthly contribution will go towards improving the quality of transmissions, as well as being able to decrease the time between uploads. As always, links to our Patreon, as well as guest social links, will be included in the description below. Without further ado, the architect of the Empire, PortoWulf. So I think the best way, we'll get the big question out first. Like, it's the elephant in the room. Everybody wants to know, what is the best pizza?
Like, as far as toppings are concerned, or like the style of pizza?
Like I mean, you're a New Yorker. You're the pizza you're the pizza capital of the world. You obviously there is a right pizza and a wrong pizza. What is it? What is the right pizza and what is the wrong pizza?
I can tell you with all certainty that Chicago pizza is just an abomination.
What is Chicago style pizza?
It's the deep dish, so you've got like a shit ton of sauce on it, and it's just like, this is a pie, like in a very literal sense, where it's got, like 2 inches of toppings on it. It's like, that's not a pizza. Right. I like my New York slice. It's flat, but it's very tasty.
Yeah.
It's got the oil that leaks off of it, but not a mound of marinara.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like.
Gotcha. Is that one of, if not the most popular pizza, or is that just like the PortoWulf special?
I mean, that's definitely gonna be like the classic, at least in this area. Like, that's what people go to when they say, "I want a slice of pizza." That's the pizza I'm talking about.
Gotcha. So would you say that your love, your artistry for pizza is what inspired you to create a mod for Fallout based on New York?
Oh, 100. The pizzas and bagels. Those are the those are the inspirations to Fallout.
Strictly because of the pizza. You played Fallout. You played Fallout 4, and you said, you know what? This game doesn't have enough pizza in it. I'm gonna fix that.
It's funny because you joke, but there is literally, I've added pizza in, and I named it after myself. It's Sousa brand pizza.
Nice. What can we? So for context, why don't you give us your pitch of what your project is, what you're making, and why it's interesting or noteworthy.
Sure. It is a new world. It has got its own storyline. You come from the Commonwealth, so it's a mod where you've done whatever you've done in the Commonwealth, and now you've come to a new location, just like you did for Far Harbor, just like you did for Nuka World. And what ends up happening is you get kidnapped, thrown literally into Manhattan with nothing on you, and you've got to, very Dead Money like, do what someone's telling you to do under threat of death. And in that process, because that in itself is actually quite easy, but in that process, you're going to end up experiencing Manhattan, and that's where the mod goes.
Is it, are we just going to be visiting the Manhattan neighborhood in New York, or are we going to be visiting, like, the large, like, can I go to the Statue of Liberty in New York City, and then can I then walk or by other means, gain access to the Empire State Building? How big are we talking about here?
So the Empire State Building is in the center of Manhattan, and the Statue of Liberty is on a separate island called Liberty Island. We also have Queens, we have Brooklyn, New Jersey. These are all separate areas. So in our mod, it's just really focused as far as the open world is concerned with Manhattan, and more specifically like Midtown Manhattan. So everything just south of Central Park and north of like Chinatown. That area is completely open. You can walk wherever you want without having to like leave Manhattan. There will be a point where you do get to go to the Statue of Liberty. There is going to be a point where you might go to Brooklyn or whatever, but it's going to be a separate location. You can't just walk there by foot. There'll be different ways of getting there.
So it's going to be kind of like, trying to think of an example in Fallout where you go to a specific location that's in like a far away location, and it's only for like a small amount of time, you know?
In one of the Fallout 3 DLCs, you go to, I believe it's like an air base or something. So it's technically in the area, but it's just off the map, and it's its own contained area. I forget what it was, but
is it?
Yeah,
I believe the base you're talking about was Adams Air Force Base.
Yeah, I think so.
But if I remember correctly, you could go back to Adams Air Force Base, couldn't you? Like after you complete the story and everything, you could go back there. I'm thinking more like is that the case in it's Empire Waste, correct?
Yes, the Empire Waste.
Yeah.
And for Brooklyn, it'll kind of be blocked off to you when you start, but once you kind of unlock Brooklyn, then you can go back and forth as often as you want.
Okay.
And the same thing with Liberty. Liberty is literally a distance away, so it's physically hard to get there. You can't just swim. But once you find a way to get there, then that way will consistently exist. But you still have to do that method each time, whether it be like, well, I won't say anything, but yeah.
I guess I was more when you mentioned that you could go to the Statue of Liberty and it's like locked until you get to like a certain point in the quest. I think the first thing that came to my mind was I don't know if you played far enough in this is an awful thing to bring up, but I don't know if you played far enough in Fallout the Frontier, but in the NCR quest line at one point you go to, I believe, San Francisco? Dayglow?
Really?
Somewhere. Yeah,
Oh right, yes, at the end, yes.
Yeah, near the end of the NCR quest you go to California and there's like explosions and bombs and mechs and all kinds of other weird shit, but it's not an area that you ever go back to. It's like an isolated cell that you can only get to under that specific circumstance. But you're saying that it's more like as you mentioned in Fallout 3's it was Broken Steel, right? Wasn't
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, where it just opens up a new area and you can go back and forth. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Basically, imagine if Fallout 3, you couldn't get into the Fallout 3 metro, like at the beginning, and you had to like turn on the metro, and then now all of a sudden you can get to a separate part of the map that wasn't there before, or it was there but you couldn't get there. You know.
I think my least favorite thing, like the thing I disliked the most about Fallout 3, was actually the metro system. So thank you for bringing up that traumatic part of my childhood.
It was very confusing. The map physically didn't actually represent the map that you could take, so it wasn't very like I'm sorry, the little in-game metro map that you could look at and you're like, oh, okay, if I go this way, then that's where I go. And it's like, nope, that's not how it works.
You talking about the Pip-Boy?
No, like literally the map that you can see at the metro stations where it shows like,
Oh.
oh, here's the red line, the blue line, the white line. And it's like, okay, but that's not actually how it is in the game.
I mean, yeah, but then you also have to consider that the subway system in general is probably, lucky to even still be a thing after probably one of the hottest targets on the planet for a nuclear bomb to drop did drop.
I'm not just talking about like, oh, like I can't go this way because it's blocked. It's like it's jumbled. It's like rearranged.
Like,
it's weird.
Like the actual layout is okay. Did you spend a lot of time actually checking to see if the metro system was actually mapped out the way it's supposed to be according to the signs?
To be honest, that was one of the reasons I got into the creation kit when Fallout 3 was around, because I was like, this has to be like me just being stupid. Like, I went into the game files and it's like, no, I'm not. Like, I have good spatial awareness. This is just weird.
So, well, I wanna touch on that too a little bit, because the Empire Waste is not your first mod. Tell us about what your first mod was, and well, that what let's go a little farther back on that. What got you into, I guess specifically to start the Fallout series? What drew you to Fallout?
Well, for Fallout specifically, I ended up buying Fallout 2 probably at like 2001 or something. So I would have been like 10. So I was old enough to play it, but probably not as old as my parents would have liked. But hey, whatever. I bought it at a yard sale. But yeah, that was my first iteration of Fallout. I did enjoy it. I thought it was interesting. And back then, I was a lot more used to how, turn-based games were. And then, I don't know, I played it. It was fun. But then I kind of just forgot about it for a little while. And then when Fallout 3 came out, everybody's like, oh, God, there's this game. And it was funny because I actually forgot I had played Fallout 2 because especially since, going from an isometric to a first-person shooter, I was like, these aren't the same game.
Right.
And it wasn't until like I was halfway through when I kind of remembered like, oh, yeah, I did play a game. And then after I played Fallout 3, I went back, played Fallout 1. And then, after that, I played consecutively as it came out. But yeah, that was how I got in. The original was just me buying it behind my parents' back. And I just fell in love with like the post-apocalyptic genre. I had already been really into like 50s stuff. So when the Fallout 3 came and it really doubled down on that retro-futurist aesthetic, then I just like really fell for it. That's when I like, oh, this is what I really like.
It's interesting because I've heard a couple of people say that because I can't speak too much for the aesthetic of like Fallout 1 and 2 and like pretty much any game that came before Fallout 3 because I haven't spent as much time in those games specifically, but from what I remember like learning and reading and hearing about and stuff like that, the 50s aesthetic wasn't as prevalent in those older games compared to like the newer games.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I mean, especially as somebody who started in a classics game, do you feel like obviously you said that the Fallout 3, the 50s aesthetic specifically was something that really drew you in. Is it more of a case in like it sold you more, or was it just an additional aspect to the game based on this a property that you had already engaged with previously?
So what I'll do first is I'll preface it. The original game had a style that's called brutalism, where where you have like a lot of like monolithic structures, you have a lot of concrete, you have a lot of like rebar, stuff like that. And that's, all fine and dandy, but I don't really live in a brutalist world.
Are there any other games that have utilized a brutalist style or a brutalist aesthetic that you can think of as like its backdrop?
So the recent Wolfenstein games, when the Nazis took over the world, they were a brutalist architectures type thing. So whenever you see these giant concrete slabs that go into the sky, like that's like a brutalist structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's a little bit different, and then you get to like the cathedral or whatever, and you have a very oh god, what's it called, gothic type thing, where it's a little bit more detailed and dark. But again, it's really not something that I myself like can relate to. But with the 1950s, again, I don't live in the 1950s, but I've at least experienced more of that than I did with either of those two styles. So kind of it's easier for me to really attach to and kind of put myself into, because I can say like, oh yeah, I like can understand where this is, or like how that works. Same thing with like the Art Deco, the retro futuristic, like those are things that I can kind of attach to, and it's very much just a personal preference. But yeah, I got really into that, and I just had a really big thing for the 50s when I started with Fallout 3 already.
Right.
So it just kind of was one extra thing.
Do you think that maybe because New York specifically has gone through so many of those cultural, artistic, architectural, stylistic design, however you want to classify it, changes over the the past 150 years, however long you want to classify it, do you think that maybe, or not maybe, do you think, but does it had like conceptually, do you think that part of your attraction to more so modern Fallout 3 with Fallout 3 kind of has its origins in the fact that you were exposed to a culture, township, society that like has implemented many of those same artistic and stylistic and culturalistic instances?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm basically primed to enjoy it. Having Frank Sinatra, he's from New Jersey and right across the street, and big into that whole thing. Just growing up with that as a backdrop really just adds to how much the style adds to me. So
that makes sense. So you said Fallout 3 was your first, or not your first game, but your next stepping stone into that, or into the genre as a whole. You because as I said, Empire Waste is not the first mod that you made. Was it your
Correct.
first mod that was for Fallout 3?
So the first mod that I put out was for Fallout 3, yes.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about that. Give us the rundown on that.
So I live in New Jersey, which is right outside of New York, but I'm also like an hour or so away from Washington, D.C. I just have to go through Philadelphia, and then it's a connection. So what I ended up doing was, for this mod, I basically had the same premise of, hey, go to New York and do a thing. But in the process, you find out like, oh, I can't physically get to New York because of the damage to infrastructure, yada, yada. But you basically get stuck in New Jersey. So you get sent out, you go to Philadelphia, you go to the station, switch over, and go to Newark, New Jersey, and you do a whole thing there where you your whole goal is to get to New York, but you never do. You end up dealing with the people in the area, find out why you can't get to New York, and kind of do your quests there, and then you go back to the DC wasteland, and then it's like, oh, nope, couldn't do it.
And what was this mod called again?
So that was Into the Arc,
Mm-hmm.
And that was for Fallout 3. And the irony was that the reason I kind of pushed it out when I did was Fallout 4 had just been announced. Because already people had really switched from Fallout 3 to Fallout New Vegas as far as like modding was concerned and like just playing in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, if they make another Fallout game, no one's going to play Fallout 3. If no one's playing Fallout 3, no one's going to play my mod. So I'm just going to finish what I have and put it out there. And ironically, part of that was I actually didn't really finish it. Like you do finish the mod, but like that first person who's like, hey, go to New York City and find these people, you never go back to tell like, hey, I can't do it. So he kind of just goes crazy. And so in this new one, he ends up just like sending person after person after person who never come back. And then he's just gone crazy by the time you meet him.
Right. Is that is that the... I imagine you must have made at least like one or two other mods between Fallout 3 and what is at this point, what is it, 7 years after Fallout 4 initially launched?
Oh yeah. I had started a few mods. I made like really simple ones. Like I made a water fountain rename mod because in Massachusetts we don't call it a water fountain, we call it a bubbler. So that was like the first thing I did as soon as the creation kit was out. I was like, nope, renaming that. Put that out. It was just a silly mod.
It's gotta have the right name. You don't call it the right thing. It's not the real thing.
You spent so much money on researching Massachusetts, and you still put in water fountain? Like, no.
Right. Because you know, like soda has a whole bunch of different versions, like all over the country. Yeah. And pop is more of like a Northeast dialect thing. Like most people call it pop. Like they don't call it like soda or cola or anything like that.
We definitely don't call it like cola, especially if you just like, do you want a soda? I think soda is our more common one, but I've heard pop and people would understand pop if you said it.
Yeah. Is it like I'm trying to remember now. I can't think of any instance in which it did come up, but do you remember any instance in Fallout 4 where a character referred to like Nuka-Cola specifically, since that's, I believe, the only carbonated beverage brand in the entire game? You know, besides oh god, what's the Vim? Besides Vim, in Far Harbor. But I can't recall anybody ever calling it pop.
I don't recall anyone doing that, and like a lot of the words are kind of just nationally used. It's really, they don't use local slang at all.
Except for that guy that tries to sell you the charge card.
Just the weirdest version of the accent. It kind of works, but also doesn't. It's just
and then the I'm forgetting his names and shit, but the baseball guy in Diamond City.
Oh, yeah.
Rookie, you?
I think, honestly, the only time that they got the accent right was a very sarcastic response that you can give when you come back from the Bar Harbor DLC, and they're like, oh, like, what happened? And then you're like, they made me the king of Bar Harbor. It's like, that actually sounded right, and that was the only time it worked.
I'm gonna have to replay the game just to get to that point so I can hear what it sounds like, because you know, in video games, you know, you never want to say like the mean thing. You don't want to hurt you want to be the good guy. You don't want to hurt everybody's feelings. And then like when it comes to the sarcastic answer, it's usually like 50-50. You're like, oh, sarcasm would be funny in this instance. But when you just got back to a distraught family whose daughter is missing, and they're all like, "What happened? Where's my daughter?" You know, the sarcastic option, like it's not 50-50 anymore. It's more of a I'm not going to say that.
And the things I didn't like about it was, one, it just says sarcasm. It doesn't say what you're going to say, and it doesn't really have a consistent idea of what sarcasm is, because sometimes you'll be sarcastic. It's like, oh yeah, I love that idea. But then sometimes you're just being a dick. It's like, that's not sarcasm. That's just being rude.
Yeah, there was the dialogue system specifically that Fallout 4 introduced. It was just bad. It was just awful.
But like the worst part is it doesn't matter. Like 80% of the time, your choice does not matter. You could be rude and you're still gonna get the same result.
Right.
Like it's just like, I feel bad, dude.
It's just a change. It's just a change in the dialogue.
Yeah. It's literally just like a little bit of a path out to the side, but then you come right back in and then you get the same thing anyways. I was like, okay.
Was there choice impact in what was it, traveling to the Ark? Your
into the Ark.
Into the Ark. That was it. Was there a moral system? Could you eat babies in that mod?
I did have it planned that you could like really change the path depending on how you wanted. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I kind of rushed production, so I'm like, okay, I've got one path done, I'm done.
Right.
But ideally, that's definitely not what I want to do. This time, I want that path branchingness. So, like, there are going to be times where it's like, nope, you've pissed off the wrong people, and they're not going to work with you anymore, and you have to live with the consequences of that.
So, for full transparency, I have helped you out a little bit with feedback on like story ideas and stuff like that. I'm actually going to be in your mod in one or two capacities, providing voice specifically because I don't fucking know how to mod. But as far as the story, because like you've told me the story like the basic story a couple of times, but I fucking contain information like a fucking boat with holes in it. Get it, you know, obviously as much as you feel like divulging. Give us the synopsis for what the story is basically going to be. Like what are we going to be doing and experiencing when we get to the old Big Apple?
So to kind of repeat what I had said before, this is, you don't have to play the Fallout 3 mod to understand what's happening in Fallout 4. It's very much its own thing. But just to get that little bit of information, again, in Fallout 3, you meet someone at the Brotherhood. He's living in a tent right outside the Citadel. Mm-hmm. And you meet him. He's like, hey, I knew your father. We need to do this. I have recordings that the Enclave have made it to New York City. And if we've been basically digging out these tunnels, you can get all the way to Philly, and then from Philly, you can go to New York. And if we can get to New York, then that means the Enclave can come back to us, and that just opens up a whole opening. So you don't want that. So basically, go in there, get as much information, destroy them if you can, but then come back and let us know. And of course, that doesn't happen because you can't physically get to New York after the bombs fell from New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is he is, in the next 10 years, he goes a little crazy. He gets kicked out of the Brotherhood, so he's now ex-Brotherhood. So regardless of your affiliation, you could be really into the Brotherhood, you could be part of the Institute, you could be part of the Underground Railroad, that doesn't matter. He will kidnap you just as a random civilian and send you to New York once again on this path to go find the Enclave, because he's still, you know, he was kicked out of the Brotherhood, but he still has, you know, a certain mindset. So he's like, nope, Brotherhood, we want to kill the Enclave. Even if our people aren't going to listen to me, I'm going to do it. So he sends you. He strips you of your things, puts a bomb collar on your neck. Some things happen, and you land in Manhattan. And it's very much like Dead Money. You are left to your own device on how you want to solve this situation. But once you're there, you can either go straight and do the path. Like you could probably finish the mod in like an hour if you just don't do anything, and you're like, oh, that's what I got to do. Okay, I do that, and then I'm out.
If you just put your nose to the grindstone and really speed run it.
Yeah, like in some of the old games, you could, like, if you knew what you were doing ahead of time, you could just book it there. You don't have to get any of the exposition or blah blah blah. And you're just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go southwest instead of southeast or whatever it was. And you're like, okay, now I'm here. I just saved 5 hours of my time. But yeah, so in this one, it's really up to you what you want to do. And once you start exploring, you start interacting with the different groups, the different settlements. You may choose like, hey, I want to help these guys out. Or you might be like, I want nothing to do with them. Or you might even be like, I want to wipe these people off the face of the earth. I hate them. So it's really up to you how you want to do it. And a lot of these settlements are different than you might find in Fallout 4, the base game, because in Fallout 4, you've got things that are very separated. They never touch each other because they're just a small grouping here or there, whereas in Manhattan, even damaged, you still have like this grid system. So it ends up being kind of like these geometric shapes that do have finite borders, and those finite borders touch. So they will end up interacting with each other a lot more than in Fallout 4, because they're very instance locations where it's like, I could help this guy do really well, but that does not affect any of the other towns in the area. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So in this one, helping one might help or hurt another, or vice versa. So that's really like the push behind it.
Okay. So there's a lot of, very clearly a lot of inspiration. You mentioned Dead Money as an inspiration a couple times. It sounds like there's going to be different factions and things like that. There are going to be factions, right? If there's no factions, the New Vegas players aren't going to play
it. there are indeed factions, and the irony being that like the whole beginning and technically the arc of the plot is Brotherhood versus Enclave, which are very traditional, well-established
tale as old as
factions.
time at this point.
Yeah, and because of that, they also play the most minor role in the game. It's literally the beginning and the end.
That's hilarious.
But everything in between is literally going to be new. Like, they don't exist anywhere else. One of the factions also existed in my Fallout 3 mod, but of course you don't have to play that to understand it, because it's reintroduced to you, because you as the character is a completely new character. They'd have to relearn it anyway, so... Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've got all different like religions. We've got like gangs. There's just settlements that are, they're a little bit more established than the Fallout 4 settlements. So you actually have like production or like food that you can trade with the other settlements, and water purification and in certain areas but not others. And some of them is like, oh, I have access to bullets or whatever. So it's like each one has like a specialty and their own personality. So it's interesting.
Each one has a very specific theme to them.
Yes,
like a specialty in either manufacturing or collecting bullets, food, this, that, and the other thing.
Like I could say that one of them is based off of Bellevue Hospital. It's literally called Bellevue, and their whole draw is that they can treat and cure disease, injury, sickness, and like they're doing it authentically. So like that's their purpose. They don't really make or produce anything else, but they can trade for those commodities because they have a service that no one else has.
Kind of like the Children of the Apocalypse in Fallout New Vegas, or the Nightingales in Sim Settlements 2.
Yes.
Because how do I phrase it? So obviously you're taking a lot of inspiration from Fallout New Vegas, and you started with Fallout 2, but you got real heavily into the series in Fallout 3, and now you're making a mod for Fallout 4, and we're recording this in Fallout 76. Specifically because you started modding in Fallout 3, primarily because that was what was available. But now you're taking so much story, maybe not story, but thematical inspiration and just inspiration in general from Fallout New Vegas. What more so? How would you classify Fallout as like a whole now? Like when it comes to like the games and the writing, because especially like, you know, Fallout 4 doesn't have the best writing in most circumstances, but like specifically when it comes to like the story, I guess story quality specifically, since story is mostly what you're leaning on with this. How would you describe it? How would you encompass it all to make it make sense?
I mean, so it was very much the Western RPG, but it's gone down the adventure genre path, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's much more streamlined when the world becomes open as much as it is, because in Fallout 76 and Fallout 4 and even Fallout 3, it's very wide open, and you know, you can go things in any path. To the mechanic wise behind it, to understand and react to all of your choices becomes exponentially more difficult the more open it is. It takes a lot of effort to kind of continue that RPG elements, which, you know, for a AAA studio may not pan out as far as you know, that might not be the selling point, because a lot of people just look at the game and say, ooh, I can shoot a gun, and then they're going to play the game. And the people who are much more into like the whole RPG elements, they might be sadly a smaller percentage, but there's really no reason that those two things are mutually exclusive, which I'm hoping that we go down more that path in the future, but you know, I'm not gonna hold my breath.
So one of the things that I more so really enjoyed, or maybe not really enjoyed, maybe that's a wrong way of categorizing it, because specifically with Fallout 76, there was a lot of stuff that went wrong with that game from the kickoff. They did plenty right though, I think, and are still trying to, you know, work on it and make it better. One of the things that I really liked though was the way that they did the leveling system, specifically because with Fallout 4, right? It's so weird looking back on it, like now, because I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls recently, or not Dark Souls, Elden Ring specifically. And in that game, it's very similar to Fallout 4, where you don't have a level cap. So with enough grinding and enough, you know, killing stuff, you can hit max level and get everything.
Right.
In Elden Ring specifically, it's like level 738 or something as max or whatever, because then you can get like 99 in every stat. But the big difference between a game like that and a game like Fallout 4, besides, you know, the blatantly obvious, is that with Fallout 4, I mean, obviously you are getting stronger with each, you know, perk you gain, but there's not really, because there is a level cap in Elden Ring, but in games like, or in Fallout 4 specifically, there isn't a level cap, or at least not one that I know about, but you will eventually unlock all your perks and everything. but then you'll be able to keep leveling, and you will continue to, I believe, like gain more health, do a little bit extra damage. I think I know the health one specifically. You continue to gain on that.
Some of the stats are based off of an equation, and the equation uses the numerical value of your level, so it's not like a tiered system. So on things like health and damage dealt and things like that, it's equated. So the higher level you are, the better that stat is.
Yeah, and I would suppose that the way they originally intended that is that because the enemies scale to you, you just keep leveling and just keep doling out a little bit extra damage and gaining a little bit more health, and then the enemies would balance adjusting according to that. So you would hit a point where you don't do any more damage to them, but that number keeps increasing, the damage you do, but the enemy's health keeps increasing, so it all kind of comes out in the wash. With Fallout 76 specifically, because it's an online game, everything has to have like a cap and be on even playing fields. But what I really liked is the card system, like the way that they handled perks, because it's not how it was in like Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 3 with the perk, or not the perks. Well, yes, the perks, but then like the actual like traits and stuff like that.
Yes.
Your big guns, your medicine, your unarmed explosives, things of that nature.
Skill system went away in Fallout 4.
Yeah, which I still argue is objectively better, but they can definitely get more creative with it. And I think the perk card system in Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 is obviously not the greatest, but it is an interesting advancement on basically what they did in Fallout 4, because it specifically allows for a loadout order. You have so many in strength, so many intelligence, this, that, and the other thing. What is your, because you've been around for a while playing Fallout, and you've seen how the ebb and the flow of things like this go. What are your opinions on like how Fallout is evolving and where you see it going in the future? Like if you were to give like a basic conceptual mechanical understanding of what you think Fallout 5 would be based on like what Fallout, what the previous games have been and how they've evolved, what would you kind of expect to see, or more so anticipate based on, the runes?
Right. Like, so especially regarding things like skills, I don't expect that to come back. I think that that's gone now. I liked the skills. I liked it because it gave it a personal touch, because sure, I might have an intelligence of 7 and you might have an intelligence of 7, but I put all of my skills into hacking, where you put all of your skills into science or something like that. So you still get these different style runs, but I do like the perk cards. I think that in a single player campaign, though, I don't think that the cards would really work as well, at least not personally. I think they'll probably end up going back to something similar, or at least more similar to the Fallout 4 system than Fallout 76's system. I really think that's probably where it's going to end up going. I think that the card systems are a really cool idea, though, and it does work well for like a multiplayer game, because then different players can have different strengths, and then you switch back and forth with the loadouts, like you said. But if it's going to be a single player campaign, I don't think that's really like the best way to go about it.
There has been a lot of games that specifically allow you to maybe not switch back and forth between play styles, but allow you the freedom to more so craft your character one way and then go around and like respec them. So like, for example, in Elden Ring, you beat a specific boss and then there's like specific items you have to get. And that actually allows you to respec your character. So if I started playing the game as like a real heavy melee build, I can then go back and respec my character to be a more like magic user or archery or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's been other games, maybe not more so recently, but there have been other games that are trying to sort of accommodate that where it is applicable.
Like I liked how the Outer Worlds did it, because there's a little workbench that you can go to. You can go there, you can undo all of your skill points and redo it again to respec your character. But each time you do it, it's harder. Like I forget exactly what the cost of doing it is, but like you can't just freely do it. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to have this conversation, let me switch it, and
Right.
the conversation's back. Okay, I can go back to where I was. So there is like something to limit the amount of just like fully changing your character, but it's still an option. I kind of like that as a compromise.
Do you think, because specifically, I'm also just hearing how often I say specifically, and it kind of pisses me off a little bit. I need to expand my vocabulary, but because you mentioned, going back and forth, like you don't have the right speech check and stuff to pass this thing. I remember very vividly some raider guy in Fallout 76. I needed a certain level of charisma in order to pass a speech check, and I didn't have it, or maybe it was luck. I can't remember, but I didn't have that. I think I was like 1 or 2 levels off, and I'm like, oh man. And then I'm like, how can I get an additional luck? So I went out and I think I got a hat and found a specific consumable that gave me a temporary boost to that, and then went back to it, and I did get that speech check. And then I remember situations, because I have very vivid memories of when Fallout New Vegas was out. Maybe not when it originally dropped, but maybe like several months to a couple of years after it came out. I sat down and I'm like, okay, I know where all the skill books are. I know all the perks. I know all the traits. I know, this, that, and the other thing. I am going to create my own personal leveling guide so that I can, get everything and get the most bang for my buck. And there was the specific build I went with. Obviously the classic and most objectively best build in any Fallout game, Stealth Sniper. Totally original, obviously, and yet an instant classic. I mapped that all out, and then the first thing I did was, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to get every single skill book, level up as little as I can, get all those skill books. Actually, I forget which perk it is, but I got one perk that gives like bonus to when you read skill books. Got all the skill books, and then basically just power level after that and get what I need when I need it. And I can't remember, obviously I don't remember the exact loadout, and I don't remember the methodology for how I got there, but I have a very vivid memory of, for the first time ever in Fallout New Vegas, being able to put 100 in every single skill. And I remember exactly where I was. I was in Zion Canyon, and that's you know what, I used specifically wrong, because I remember I was in Zion Canyon, but I don't remember where I was in the game. But I do remember that I was there when I had 100 in every skill. I don't fucking remember what my specials were, but I do remember that I also took into consideration speech checks when I was crafting that. So it was very different from Fallout 4, where it's like, oh, you just need, this much in charisma or whatever, and then you have a certain percentage to get this specific outcome. Where, similar to how it was in Fallout 3 with the actual percentage system, instead of just like different colored options in Fallout 4, and then like a hard level you have to be at for Fallout New Vegas skill checks.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember taking that into consideration, and I have absolutely no idea what the specials were. But I remember also hitting that. But to bring that all back, do you think there could be an argument made for that sort of all-encompassing openness, where it's like, okay, yeah, I can just go back, switch out my load order or change up my load order so that I can meet this very specific skill check, or this specific kind of situation, because all I'm doing is just switching stuff up in the meta. Do you think that there could be a legitimate argument made for allowing that, but then giving the player the freedom to, go down that path if they wanted to, or say, no, I'm going to stick to my specific build? Like, what do you think would be the difference between giving the player that freedom to basically, just do whatever they want in the game, but choosing not to, versus that restrictive, maybe restrictive is too harsh of a term, because I don't want to sound like it's limiting or anything, but that more build orientated style, sort of like something like Fallout New Vegas.
Right. Like, so I'm always the proponent of giving the player a choice. So having a thing listed as like, oh yeah, you could change your stuff to make it easy for you. Go ahead and give that to players, because some players, they're not as, die hard in their play style. They just want to do this casually, and for them, that's great. But what I would say is that if you're going to have an option, but then not taking that option makes your gameplay a little harder, that you should find a way to incorporate a benefit to that, whether it be like, oh, at the very end, it's like, oh, you've never changed yourself, and now you can get like a secret ending or something like that. Just to give that person like a pat on the back, kind of be like, yeah, you did it, as opposed to just being like, oh, well, you never did it. That's it. That's done.
There would have to be like actual incentives for people to stick to a traditional thing, like something beyond just like, you meet a character at the beginning when you first got your build and everything, and then later on you meet them in the story again, and if you've changed up their build, they say something specifically. But maybe if it's drastic enough, like say for example they're using the card system from Fallout 76, maybe if you have fewer than, say, 3 of the same cards that you had when you originally met them, if you have less than that, they could say something along the lines of, as like a dialogue thing, like, oh, like you're completely different. You're all, like, again, maybe you apply like karma changes and stuff like that. Like, you're a different man than the one I met back in Washington, or like, wow, you're totally different from where you were before. Like, holy crap. But then there could be like, and then there could be like specific, there could be specific outcomes based on that decision to change up your build.
Yeah, because like, in some of the games when there was the karma system, certain people could only be brought in if you were good or bad or neutral. I think like if you walk up to someone, say, hey, you want to be my friend, and you're like, no, you're too much of a goody two shoes, and you just watch the man leave, and he just instantly kills like an entire town and walks back 5 minutes later. It's like, hey, you want to be friends now? Like, you should get a different answer than like, yeah, you're a badass, just like you've always been.
Kind of like Jericho in Fallout 3. One of the first companions you can meet, and 9 times out of 10, any player that plays that game is not going to have a low enough karma to be able to be friends, to get him as a companion, since he's like right at the start of the game. I've been seeing, not been seeing a lot of people talking about it, but I posted one meme on my community tab, and it's like, the the Undertaker meme where he's standing right behind that other wrestler and just like staring at him, and people
Yeah.
overlay shit over that all the time. This one, it was the flag of Kaisar, and the text over the Undertaker said something along the lines of when I find out that killing the Legion gets me good karma.
Yeah.
I saw somebody commented on that and said something to the effect of what was it? Because like Fallout New Vegas did it kind of the same, where there was still like a karma system, but reputation was kind of a bigger thing. And they said something along the lines of like they don't like karma system because it's
subjective.
Morality is kind of a subjective thing.
And especially when you're in like a post-apocalyptic genre, like having the idea of like absolute good or absolute evil and no gray lines makes the arguments that are meant to be made by that genre pointless, because like you're supposed to be like that one quest in Fallout New Vegas where it's like, oh, do you save the sharecroppers or do you save the people in the vault underneath who are dying, like actively dying? It's like, if you don't help one, then you ruin the other, and if you don't help the other one, then you kill off the others. There is no good answer. And if they all of a sudden decided like, oh, if you answer A, you get good karma, or answer B, you get negative karma, that means they have answered that question for you. And there's no like real, discussion to be had. It's like, nope, that's the answer and that's it.
I feel like it would kind of have to be like they would have to think of a new way, like just a new name for it, like not like a karma system, because when you actually like get into like what exactly the word karma means, there's a pretty cut and dry, like karma, like it goes around, comes around, and that's usually saying like if you do something bad's going to happen to you, and you do something good's going to happen to you. It starts to get a little bit more subjective when it's like, okay, well, what does good mean to you? But in the context of karma specifically, there is kind of like an overall, like, there are good things and there are bad things. And it's in New Vegas specifically, it's kind of funny that there's the karma system, but then there's also Hegelian dialectics.
Well, what he calls it.
Because I feel like a lot of people who are watching will probably actually know what real Hegelian dialectics are, and I hate to break it for all you Legion stands, but Hegelian dialectics in New Vegas isn't what you think it is. Hegelian dialectics is just a fancy Latin way of saying the ends justify the means.
But I mean, ultimately, that's why I liked the faction system, where it's like, oh, the boomers like you because you have done things that are good for them specifically. But that has no meaning on the Great Khans, because they have an entirely different existence. And like, oh, you helped that old lady, that's nice, but also, who cares?
I mean, there's not really like a karma system or like a reputation system in Fallout 4. Are you implementing something akin to that in Empire Wastes?
Yes, we are implementing a faction system, not karma, and it's specific to the main settlements and the main factions. There'll be like some smaller ones that don't really matter, but it's and instead of being a two-pronged thing of like, oh, I'm holier than thou or I am the devil, it's you've done good and bad, or you've done a little bit of good and a lot of bad, or vice versa. I think actually New Vegas had something similar to that too, because it was like, oh, troubled peacemaker or something like that, where it's like you've done a little good, a little bad. So that's where we're going for that. And each faction has its own system and its own ratings. And on occasion, helping one and being in the good graces of one might automatically make you good or bad for another person, because it's like, oh, these are my friends and you're their friend, then hey, you get a little good grace with me. Or like, oh, those people try to kill me every day and you're their best friend, like, nah, I don't like you. So uh, a little bit more interconnected on that end.
Makes sense. Making it a little bit more realistic. Yeah. I trying to think back on our conversation. I don't think I've said you. I definitely said it in the intro, and it's probably definitely it should be future Toshi from the future. You should have PortoWulf's name in the title, but for anybody who has been like paying attention to other mods, specifically Fallout London, they probably recognize your name because you've also been working on several other mod projects besides your own, the Empire Wasteland. With London specifically, you've been helping out with them. What other projects have you been working on at in conjunction with Empire Waste? Because that's your passion project that you've been working on for a while.
Yeah, like you said, Fallout London. Did a lot of interior design, helped them out with a few things here and there. I think one of the cool things about being on like a project, but also in connection with these other projects, is they didn't really give us an instruction manual. So some of us know certain things, some of us know other things, and then when we come together, we can kind of exchange that. So like, I gave them information, they gave me a lot more information back. So like,
are you talking about
that was kind of cool.
Are you talking about like the different mod projects, or like different people working on the teams?
Both. I mean, like as a project, like if I say like, oh, I never figured out how to do this, someone on the project might be like, oh, well, this person did it. Let's get you into contact with that person, and then then they actually can help. Or they might be like, oh yeah, we have that document like in our system. Let me send it over to you. So then like either way,
Mm-hmm. What do you gain out of modding?
That's an interesting question, because like one of the things that I know about myself is that I like to tell a story. I like to entertain others. I like to make people think, and I like to create worlds and just have people experience that. Like outside of modding, something that I like to do is like I throw events like escape the room parties or things like that, where I've designed everything and then my other people get to experience that, and me watching the people experience it is where I get the joy from. So having the people enjoy what I've created and what I've given them as an experience, that's really where I get it. And like the same thing comes for the modding. Like the best I think I felt was when when the mod that I did for Fallout 3 came out, when people started commenting and like left really nice messages. That really made me happy. That's what I get out of it.
God, nice comments. That's a foreign concept to me. So you're saying it's more of a it's kind of like being, I mean, it's not something I can kind of put my mind in the headspace, like conceptually, because both my mother was both my parents were at one point or another chefs, so I can kind of imagine what it's like to work professionally as somebody who makes and prepares food and then gives it to people to enjoy. So conceptually, anyway, it seems like you're saying that the process of creation and then presentation and reaction, that whole cycle in it, more is like what you get out of modding, because obviously as it stands now, outside of Patreon and just people being kind and offering donations and stuff like that, there's no monetary gain out of something that takes years and years, and a lot of time and effort and know-how and practicality and stuff like that, and to minimum, like, it's I don't want to undershort it or anything like that, but or like make it seem like the community isn't eternally grateful for some of the mods that get put out there, but like the return on investment for mods is like is drastically disproportionate to the amount of time and effort that actually goes into the mods. But you're more so saying that the process and the reception is more so what you're perhaps not seeking, but kind of what keeps you in the modding community.
If I had to like psychoanalyze myself, I'm a very creative person, I'm a very artistic person, and like those things are going to go on in my head regardless. Me getting it out and having people enjoy it is a way of almost validating that, of like, hey, that's okay, and like that's actually beneficial to people as a whole because you've been able to share this. That's definitely not something that I consciously think about, but I think that probably plays some type of role in it. Just like it makes me happy, but I think the happiness comes from the idea of like, hey, what I did had value. And what you said was very true, like all the effort that goes into it, because it does take years of effort, learning new skills, working with other people, and then what you come back at, there's no monetary value, there's nothing like that. Some people do get like jobs out of this. I've had two of my friends from Fallout London get actual jobs in the industry. That would be nice, but that's not something that I'm aiming for or that I'm doing this project in order to get recognition. As far as that is, again, nice, but not what my goal is. So
right. Obviously modding in and of itself is a complex, and I mean it's definitely gotten a lot easier. I remember having a short back and forth with another modder on Twitter, and because they had like for the first time made something from Fallout 3 where as all of their former work was for Fallout 4, and I asked him like, "Oh, is it easier to mod for Fallout 3 compared to Fallout 4?" And they were all like, "Oh God, no! It's awful. It's horrible. It's horrible modding for Fallout 3. Fallout 4 is so much easier." But so obviously it's gotten easier. It's still not easy. It's still time consuming, and I would imagine very stressful at times because you're working with basically video game creation. But what for anybody who is like you, somebody who gets the enjoyment out of creation and delivery, or somebody like me who is very interested in storytelling, and sort of wants to elevate, from going just to like writing words on a page to actually presenting something that's a little bit more substantial than, say, like, just like a YouTube video. What sort of advice would you have for somebody who is looking to get into modding, either from like a practical standpoint, like, oh, these are like tips and tricks, or like a conceptual standpoint, like this is what you should, maybe not what you should think about, but this is sort of the headspace you want to be in to do this long term?
So one of the things that I would definitely tell anyone who's interested in modding is that whatever you're thinking of is definitely possible, but it's probably not nearly as easy as you think. And that should not be a deterrent. That's just, understand that going in, because a lot of people go in, get confused, get frustrated, get bogged down, and then they just stop, and then the projects die, or the whole idea just stops. And I think that's like the worst kind of effect, is just stopping. Um, of course, there's always a time that you have to know your own limits and things like that. But honestly, just being aware in the beginning of like, hey, this is not something that I can just pick up and instantly master. I've been doing this for years and I'm still learning things here and there. Just having that will kind of help you not burn out quite as easily. And the other thing too is to really be open to other people. A lot of times, even I do this, where it's like I get so into my own head. I know what I want. I know what I want to say, but the way that I'm doing it, or the way that I'm presenting it, or whatever, just doesn't make any sense to other people. And if I don't listen to people when they tell me that, then the end result is going to suffer. So having that openness for other people is definitely going to be key. And like I said before, like people on the mod teams, certain people know certain things, certain people know other things, and they come together, and that's how the full project gets finished. You're going to know things that others don't. Other people are going to know things that you don't. And there's no what's the word? There's no shame or no whatever in asking for help. That's a big thing too. Like, it's a community. These are passion projects. People love what they're doing. That's why they do it. We're not doing it, as a job. We're not doing it just, for money or whatever. Like, we're doing it because we want to do it. So we like what we're doing. So definitely talk to other people as well.
But in some, I want to maybe not push back on that a little bit, but like challenge it a little bit, because you say that when somebody's passionate, it's kind of like that Stan Lee quote where he says something along the lines of like, if you have an idea that you genuinely think is good, don't let some idiot try to talk you out of, which is a beautiful statement. It's completely fantastic, but I think what a lot of people forget is the next line of his thought there, which is not every idea is good. So like we can look to something like The Frontier, for example, which I think I've definitely seen it, but it would be hard pressed to find a large enough percentage of people that would say The Frontier, at least in the version it was released as, was probably something that needed to be made. Like, I absolutely despise the NCR quest line. It's nonsensical, stupid. The writing is awful. It's so hackneyed and stale and dry, and just I'd just be watching a slideshow of other video games all pasted together. But to your other point, there is like actual genuine passion and creativity in that game, like the driving system. I'm forgetting the modder's name right off the top of my head. I follow him on Twitter, but
there's like an X in there, right?
Yeah. It's Zonaldo or something like that. I'm probably way off, but I'll probably be showing a picture of his mod page here on screen. But he basically created driving in the Fallout engine. He perfected it, and it feels really smooth. For the most part, besides the massive areas that are literally just huge chunks of ice, like it's Skyrim or something, the world of The Frontier is pretty competently made. It's pretty dang good. There's some creative aspects with like the Crusaders and some ideas they did with the Legion, which are kind of interesting. Not all of them, because the Legion especially has some real fucked up shit in it. But again, to sort of challenge what you said about, you know, if you want to create a story, you know, and you're passionate about it, go for it. Is there anything that we can do to avoid another frontier, or anything that we might caution people against doing, or advise people to do more often, to more so? And I'm not saying the frontier couldn't be good. I'm saying that, like, there were definitely some steps that were avoided, or maybe not avoided, but neglected in the refinement and the honing process. What could be done for new people, new modders, new storytellers, to avoid the same outcome?
Yeah, and I tried touching on this, but I don't think I really got to really say what I wanted. But like the openness of like talking with others is that, like, listen to what people are saying, because if things are, there's always going to be a balance. You should listen to other people, get a second opinion if you don't like what they have to say, but definitely get, you know, like you had mentioned before, I have talked to you about certain parts of the story, and oftentimes I present it to you as like, hey, does this make sense? I value your opinion. I value many other people's opinion in the community, and I reach out to them and I say, hey, how does this sound? And now that, you know, the project is starting to get actual people in it, now we have you know, a team of writers. Like, we can talk to each other. You want to avoid having that echo chamber, but at the same time, having multiple people can bounce things back and forth. I think one of the things that was established as a big issue in the Frontier was they had people who did not take reverse criticism. So, you know, that was a big misstep, because people were telling them like, hey, this isn't a good thing, but they still wanted it. You know, you got to learn to listen, basically.
Learn to take criticism.
Yeah.
Obviously good faith criticism.
Yeah, so basically having that openness to listen to other people's opinions. Of course, get a second opinion if you don't agree with it, but if there's a lot of people who have something to say and it's the same thing, it's probably worth taking into consideration.
What because obviously there's, I guess it's sort of different when you know a little bit more about, like, the gaming process, or maybe not the gaming process, but what specifically goes into the creation of a game from a storytelling standpoint, from an actual creation standpoint. So it probably changes your understanding of video games for maybe not for the most part, but in some sort of aspect. But what is, like, a game that maybe has come out recently, or is going to be coming out, you know, sometime in the future, the far future, maybe not the far future, with like Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. We're gonna be old men by the time that comes out. But what's an upcoming game that you're looking forward to, and especially with your knowledge of the process, why are you looking forward to it? So, like, if this was, say, you know, 2014, I think, and the Lord of the Rings games are coming out with the Nemesis system, which I think objectively is absolutely groundbreaking video gaming technology. What are you looking forward to as somebody who has that level of experience with both game creation and just writing on that level?
Well, I think I've told you I've kept myself very much in the dark with Bethesda's Spacey Boy game, um, and I kind of did that on purpose just so that whatever comes out, I can be pleasantly surprised and not have any type of expectations. But I am looking forward to it.
Just so everybody knows, he's talking about the Bethesda games that's going to be coming out, ideally anyway, sometime later this year.
Yes.
It's Fall Space 3, the video game. Starfield. You're talking about Starfield, though.
I'm talking about Starfield.
What?
And I'm looking for that, like, for a different couple of reasons. Again, I've kept myself very much in the dark as far as like what's even gonna be the, like, mechanic wise as far as the game is. All I know is it's in space, and that the dialogue system, at least, is not a four option. So
yeah, they've definitely because they're kind of, I don't know, it feels both accurate and inaccurate to say that they're going back to something like, Morrowind or Fallout 3 or even New Vegas, where like the multiple choices, it's not just 4 options anymore, but it still feels like a new kind of system. But it to your point, it's not just the 4 options anymore. You have an actual like dialogue tree, like a proper one. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to a new type of setting, this space setting. And I know we had like Prey and other games like that, but I think like this is a new, without the pun, but like a new frontier of like, it's open. I believe that there's a lot of story that can be told that hasn't been told in other games. So I think this is going to bring in a lot of new ideas. I'm it's actually simultaneously really exciting, but also really frightening, because it's way back when we were talking about like aesthetics from Fallout. Like, if I'm not used to it and it's too new, I'm almost less into it. So maybe, like the first time I play it, I'm sure I'm going to have just like a fun time playing a game. But as far as like the world and story is concerned, it's probably going to take me a little while to kind of get into it. That's just my personality. But I think probably on my second playthrough, that's when I really get like, oh, I understand these details now of like how that affects the world building. But yeah.
Do you have any plans to make mods for Starfield?
I don't know.
That's fair.
I think I'm gonna have to play the game to even figure out like to what aspect can I mod, because if it's just gonna be, oh, I can make cool ship upgrades or something like that, like that's not my cup of tea as far as making. But if it's open enough where I can fit in my own, story or quest or adventure or whatever you want to call it, maybe. I guess it also would depend on the editor, because if they give us what Fallout gave us with the creation kit, where it's very user friendly, that's much more likely than like, oh, here's the engine, but we're not going to give you really a good tool to use it.
Right. There was something that I can't remember off the top of my head if this is something that's like almost 100% going to happen or more so like a speculation thing, but I'm pretty sure it's something that I talked to you about previously, either over text or over, via voice call. But the YouTuber Juicehead, who covers a lot of Bethesda specific news and stuff, he put out a video where basically he was talking about how somebody brought it to his attention that the Steam information, like it's like SteamDB, which is a website that publicly displays different versions of Steam games. So there's like, there's like a live build and there's usually like a dev build, and it just shows like, oh, this is, what they're working on. It's like looking at like a legal document. Like I saw a TikTok the other night where somebody found out that if you go to, it's like PokemonSleep.com, which is a sleep app that they've had in, they've been talking about for a while. Like you go to the website and it literally just shows you like a patent document and like what the game sort of is, like what the cycle, like what the concept is and stuff like that. That's kind of the idea with SteamDB. You literally just see kind of like a little bit deeper of the metadata and stuff like that. But what they noticed when they went to, or what somebody noticed when they went to the Skyrim SteamDB, is that there was an in development version of the game that was called like Skyrim Store or Skyrim Shop or something like that. And I think that there was definitely some additional middle part that I'm forgetting at the moment, but basically what he started speculating on is the possibility that Bethesda is going to be maybe Xbox in general, but in this specific case because it's Skyrim, Bethesda is potentially going to be rolling out paid mods very similar to their Creation Club system. However, especially because they're under Microsoft now, one of the things that he speculated on is that it would probably be something similar to the Minecraft store or the Minecraft shop, whatever it's called, where you can actually pay money to have mods on your game. And it's obviously something that's targeted more towards console players for the plug and play element, because people like you and me who do, well, you do PC modding, like actually PC modding. I just put mods on my PC game. But it's open, like you're going to be able to get practically anything you want digitally on a PC, no matter what. It's just a matter of time and effort input. But on a console, that's not the case. It's maybe not a lot harder, but not as expansive to be able to mod on, say, Xbox or PlayStation specifically, because Sony and PlayStation got their whole deal and all that stuff. But so the theory is, and again, I can't remember if this is an actual theory or if it's something that's more likely to happen, but the speculation is that Bethesda is going to be rolling out a, as I said, a paid mod store, again, most likely aimed at console players. So obviously downside, some people are going to have to actually pay for mods, but then there was also speculation, and more, again, based on Minecraft, because all of the mods in the Minecraft store are actually made by, independent modders, and they actually get a cut of the revenue earned from purchasing their mods. So what they think, or what Juiced thinks, maybe not Juiced, but like people in general, what they're thinking is that maybe Bethesda is rolling out something similar to where, yes, there will be paid mods on both, console and PC, but that money will then go towards, or be given either in some percentile or 100%. I can't remember. I can't imagine it's 100%. I would imagine it's, maybe like a 70-30 split to the creator, that the mod authors would then have a revenue stream by creating mods, very similar to how YouTube worked when they started, paying their content creators. You make content, that contents get, for YouTube, that content get viewed. we can run ads on it, we gain revenue from those ads, and then you get a cut of that profit because you actually made the thing. But
Right.
with mods, you are making the thing, and then we are just selling it in our store.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? If that like the likelihood of that actually happening, and what you think of that sort of situation?
So, I mean, it's definitely a multifaceted idea because on one hand, like the idea of being compensated for work is, a major thing. I believe that people should be compensated. What I worry though is creating these almost like the illusion of like elite mods, where it's like, oh, these are paid mods, these are like Bethesda sanctioned mods, versus the Nexus or other areas you could get mods from, where maybe people who can't get, because I don't know what they're, because I can't imagine that just any mod can show up on there. I'm going to assume that you have to get into some type of contract with Bethesda, and it's not going to be like, because for Fallout 4 you can go onto the Bethesda website and anyone's mod is there. You can get them. The creation kit is different though, and I know, was it Eleonora that did a couple of those?
Yeah. For context, Eleonora is a very well known Fallout 4 modder. She's made a lot of clothing mods, a lot of graphical update mods. Not very like graphically intensive mods, but she's dipped her toe in that. But most of her stuff is actual outfits and what is it? Like
I believe they also had like player homes and things like that. Because I
yeah,
remember the
that was it.
interiors having really cool clutter looking things.
Yeah, she's very good on detail, very detailed
Yes.
outfits and very detailed player homes. But yes, that is who Eleonora is. As you were.
And like I know that some of the Creation Club came from Eleonora's work, and I think that's awesome. Like all power for them, but like I just worry that if it creates this weird schism between who's in and who's not, and like what type of mods are they going to allow, because obviously there's certain content that Bethesda might not want to have out, and of course Bethesda can do what they want. They're their own company. They shouldn't be forced to do one thing or the other. But I don't know, it just becomes like one other thing that you have to like politically navigate on that. But I think there's a potential there to be really beneficial to the modding scene as a whole, but there's also the potential to kind of like divide it. So it could go one way or the other.
Do you think that because you mentioned like and I kind of agree, there probably would be like a divide between like what is put out to the more general populace, because if we think of general populace as being the people who just, be it on console or PC, just just get in, want to plug and play, and just veg out on the couch or in the gamer chair and just play a game that fucking works. Like I enjoy playing Fallout 76 in some instances way more than I enjoy playing Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 4, because I don't have to worry about fucking modding and fucking getting everything to work just so I can make the game look as fucking cool and be as expansive as I want. 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, it's worth it. But sometimes I just want to just fucking play Fallout.
Yeah.
But so in that concept, that there might be a schism. Obviously, the old adage, the cream rises to the top, or however it goes. I don't fucking care. The because like there I think there kind of already is, like it's not like an official thing, but there you can kind of really quickly tell, like, oh, this is a good quality mod, or like, oh, this is a garbage mod, this is an awful mod. So like, obviously they could still put smaller mods that just add like a character or a small outfit bundle. They could put that on the store, like, oh, it's $1, or like, oh, you get this like little mini pack that's like $5 or whatever.
Right. Well, I think that's also really important too, is like, is the pricing going to be consistent? What caused the pricing to be one way or the other? Like, if I get one piece of clothing, is that really worth value when I bought a $60 game that had an entire map, an entire quest, 700 different clothing options to begin with? Like, how do I divide that to equate to being, oh yeah, I buy one new outfit,
Mm-hmm. And I think that I think that part of that is kind of like the ease of access, because like you look at something like Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, or whatever their subscription is called. I can never remember off the top of my head, but with the subscription service, in the long term, like after a couple months, you probably would be paying. You would definitely be paying less for this game, or like these 2 games or these 3 games, depending on what games it is. But the ease of access, being able to easily access that library for a lower upfront cost, is kind of the justification. With something like this, I could see. Excuse me. Oh my god. I could see the justification more so being like, because like I remember modding for Fallout 4 on the Xbox. Like that was my first introduction to mods, and it was fine. It wasn't the most expansive thing, Obviously it's way better and just way better modding on PC, because there's so much open access. And for PC players specifically, really all this does is it opens up the ease of access, because PC players specifically, they can do whatever. We can do whatever we want. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just want to sit down and play the fucking game and have it work right. So it's like, sure, I'll drop $20 to get season 1 or the whole, all three chapters of Sim Settlements 2, and it just works, and I don't have to worry about messing with any of the files or running Mod Organizer or anything. It's just there, and it works, and it's fine. But on the other hand, specifically for PC players, we can just we can power through the time spent, knowledge we would have to gain in order to make the mod work, and just play it for free. I think that more so is kind of like the justification. It's the actuality or the illusion of time saved.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember back when the Creation Club was still kind of like a thing for Fallout 4, watching, I think it might have been Oxhorn. Someone did like a bundle review, and they went through what came with it, and I think it was like a bunch of power armor options, and they're like, yeah, this is cool, but this other mod is on the Nexus for absolutely free, physically so much better, and it's free. But like you said, people on consoles can get it, and people on PC have that ease of access. So I don't know. There's always going to be kind of like that, why'd you pay money for that? But like you said, sometimes people just pay for the convenience.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's what I do every single season in Fallout 76 because one, I don't want to have to, grind for atoms grind for points every day and every week. And two, I'm not going to do that I'm just gonna fucking pay the like $130 or whatever so I can have the season, and then I can be like, I got the thing, so I can have my little good boy Bethesda fucking sellout badge.
Yeah.
But I don't, because I don't know, from like a business perspective, it makes a lot more sense because consoles are the thing that sell. Those are the things that make or break a game.
Yeah.
Unless it's like an indie title or the developers specifically make PC games.
Right.
So like you obviously want to keep the console gamers happy and offer as much as you can to them while also making money, because that's the point of a business, making money.
Right.
Making as much money as you possibly can.
Right.
And so, there's the ease of access there. But then, as you said, anybody who, is like, I don't want to pay for this, then they can just like go to the Nexus and download the exact same mod for free. And it's like, yes, you could do that. There is like with your modding, there is time and effort, and there is a barrier to entry on either side. On the Bethesda mod store, Fallout, Skyrim, Starfield, however it is, the barrier to entry is $5, $10, $15, $20, whatever it is. If they put anything on the store that's more than $20, my tune's gonna real quickly change. But so like that's on that side. That's the barrier to entry for those modding experiences. On the PC side, it's easier just because that's where mods came from. They came from the PC. We've kind of I don't know why I'm saying we. You guys ran so that console players could walk, or however it goes. So like that's the barrier to entry. You get everything set up, you download everything you need, you install the mod, you make sure the mod fucking works, because 9 times out of 10, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but sometimes it just doesn't work. You make sure it works, and then you can play and enjoy the game. Yeah. But if something goes wrong, it's not that plug and play, easeability. There's time and effort associated with it. And I think that more so than anything is the justification in the individual's minds. Like, is it worth learning and being able to do this on my own? Or do I just want to pay the $5 and not have to worry about it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And like you said, it is a business. In the end, it's a business. It's a AAA studio. It's gonna make its money, make its shareholders happy, whatnot. So it is what it is. Yay, capitalism.
What do you think is probably, maybe not probably, but in your own viewpoint, in your own understanding, because especially as a writer, creator, game creator, story crafter, however you want to classify it, you often have to think introspectively about people, topics, policy, decisions about decisions. You have to get very introspective and very meta at times, thinking about thinking. You have to get very philosophical. Especially if, like, as you do, you implement a karmic system or a morality system, as you will. So in your own perception, what is like one of, if not perhaps the thing that people ought to remember or keep in mind in order to lead like a fulfilling or an objective or subjectively good life?
I mean, I think the first thing is to consistently be open to learning, because you might have a moral or a rule that you live by totally works fine for you, and then all of a sudden you realize that in the future it's no longer applicable. Whether times have changed, maybe just the situation has changed, in which case, things don't run the way that you normally would. You can't just sit there and be like, nope, it's always A. It can never be B, and never, ever, ever. It's like that old thing was like, is it worth stealing a car if you're going to drive your grandmother with a heart attack to the hospital or something like that? Like, if it's like, oh, you can never steal a car, then no. Like, I mean, the concept, yes, but in reality, no. Because you can't prioritize a car over your grandmother, or someone's property, something like that. So, like, you always have to be able to flex, not just because you want it to flex, but because the situation calls for it. And people who, I think, stick by their guns too much are the ones that the world leaves behind, and everybody else remembers not in the best of light. And even though you have the best of intentions and everything, that, like, no one one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to be a dick. No one does that.
Well, that's not 100% true. I do. I wake up every morning and make that decision consciously.
Well, like, everybody is the protagonist of their own story. Everybody is a good guy of their own story. So, like, everybody has a reason for what they do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right reason. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, or whatever that saying is. Like, it's very true. I think if you want to live your life as a karmically good person, it's not just a system of yes, no checkboxes. It's really an understanding and having to learn as you grow. That's like the one thing that I think people have to realize, because otherwise, like, sure, maybe for the next 10 years your checkbox system works, but then that checkbox system is suddenly obsolete, and you're going to be left behind.
So you're mostly saying that it's that for one to lead a, again, subjectively good, because morality is a subjective thing, whether or not it leads to some sort of general consensus, like what the large mass population of different people with different ideas and different opinions and different ideologies would consider as one unifying good and one unifying and agreed upon bad, you would say that from a subjective standpoint, it's more so important to be open-minded and to be willing to maybe not change, but intake information, process it, and then act upon that information.
Like, I was born in 1991. In 1991, a national poll made it so that only 57% of people thought that interracial marriage was okay, and that everybody else was like, nope, that's immoral, disgusting, whatever. And now it's 2023, and that number, of course, is still higher than it should be, but way lower than 57%. And, we continue. Now it's, okay, what about gay marriage? What about these other things? And things change. I don't think that people in 1991, when they were voting against certain things, that they thought that they were being wrong. But in retrospect, they were. And that's why I really think, like, you have to be able to adapt.
Adaptability.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with PortoWulf, lead developer of the Empire Wasteland Fallout 4 mod project. As always, If you enjoyed this episode of the Atomcast, the best way you can show your support is by subscribing to our Patreon, as your monthly contribution will go towards improving the quality of transmissions, as well as being able to decrease the time between uploads. Until next time, I thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all out there in the wasteland.